Hi, I'm Chef Pedro and this is Pastry Star. Today we're going to work with our Panna Cotta mix and we're going to do something seasonal and festive using sweet potatoes since Thanksgiving is right around the corner, and that seems to be the most prevalent item to use this season. This Panna Cotta mix comes in a 5-pound bag. You get a case of 2. Each bag yields about 164-ounce portions, so you're looking at over 300 portions in this case alone. This Panna Cotta mix is really consistent, easy product to use, creamy and rich, and today we're going to use a sweet potato puree to incorporate with that to make our sweet potato Panna Cotta, and we're going to garnish it with sweet potato crisps, which we're going to make just by cooking it off and dehydrating it in the oven. I have 3 sweet potatoes here. We're going to use 2 for the puree and 1 for the garnish. We're going to go ahead and peel all 3. To stay on top of our timing, we're going to go ahead and start a simple syrup that's pretty basic, equal parts sugar and water. Here I have 2 cups of each. We're just going to throw that on low heat and just wait till it's all nice and melted. I'm separating these 2 since they're relatively the same size. We're going to go ahead and give them a rough chop. Again, this is really up to your preference. You can cook them whole, you can wrap them in aluminum foil and bake them off, but this will be the easiest and the quickest, so we're going to go ahead with that. That's going straight into a pot full of water. We already have our peeler handy, so I figured we'd just make our crisps by shaping the potato with the peeler. So what we're going to do is we're going to make these nice bands. That way they'll cook very quickly. So now we have these nice bands of sweet potato. We're just going to drop them in the boiling simple syrup. Shouldn't take more than 10 minutes until they seem nice and tender. Again, remember, once it starts boiling, you can keep the heat nice and low. You don't want that hot sugar splattering on you. Now, to make good use of our time, we can go ahead and start scaling the ingredients for the Panna Cotta. All you're going to need is milk, heavy cream, and the Panna Cotta powder mix. I'm going to use about 56 grams of Panna Cotta powder mix, 225 grams of milk, and 260 grams of heavy cream. It seems like our potatoes, they look pretty soft. We don't want them to break down completely. We want it to hold their structure. So I'm going to go ahead and just run it through a strainer. We're going to pick them up gently with a fork or a pair of tongs if you have them. And just going to get them on parchment paper or a silicone sheet tray. We're going to try to separate them as much as possible so when we throw them in the oven, they'll dry out properly. Once you have them spread out, we're going to throw them in the preheated oven set to 225. We'll check back on them in about 45 minutes. That should be enough time to get them nice and caramelized, and they'll finish drying off once we pull them out and they cool. While the crisps are in the oven, I have my sweet potatoes boiling. They're about cooked now. I've been able to poke through them with a fork, so I'm going to strain that as well, and we're going to drop it either in a RoboCoupe food processor or a Vitamix blender, for example, so that we can make the most consistent, smooth puree possible. So as you can see, just with sweet potato, I managed to have this really smooth, all natural sweet potato puree, and it's quite sweet just with the natural sweetness of the sweet potato. This makes it so that I'm not even going to adapt the recipe from the Panna Cotta mix. There's enough sugar in the mix and enough sugar in the sweet potato that the flavors balance out, and we don't need to really change anything. For this recipe, we're going to use about 25–30% puree. That's quantity is relative to the liquids that we added to the Panna Cotta mix. In this case, we have about close to 500 grams. So 25% of that is going to be about 125 grams of sweet potato puree. This is something you can play around with according to your taste. I find that if you start putting too much potato, you do get a little bit of the potato fiber texture in the Panna Cotta, so we're going to keep it at 25%. The process for making the Panna Cotta is exactly the same as the process for the creme brulee and for our flan mix. Essentially, we're going to take our liquids into the saucepan, and we're going to reserve a tiny amount into this bowl, where we will add the powder. We can go ahead and add the sweet potato at this point. We have 125 grams, and we're going to bring that to a boil. Give it a little whisk right now. So our Panna Cotta is coming to a boil here. Pour a little bit of this into the dissolved powder and add it back into the liquid. And in just a few seconds, it should come back to a boil. Something to keep in mind, if you don't have the best food processor and you're afraid that you didn't puree your sweet potato quite smoothly enough is you can always strain it at this point. I'm gonna go ahead and strain it anyways, just to guarantee that the final product is as smooth as it can possibly be. And I can see at the bottom of the strainer here, we did catch a few of the potato fibers. So now I like to use my confectioner's funnel. It makes pouring things into small receptacles very quick and easy. I'm gonna do a couple panna cottas in the veins, the glass cups, and I'm gonna do the rest in our silicone molds. This will make them really easy to flip out. This is gonna go into the fridge, about 2 hours. Should be enough time to get it really firm. Again, if you're in a rush, you need it to go in an hour, pop it in the freezer for a few minutes, then back in the fridge before it freezes, and it'll come out just as quickly. So the timer went off on the potato crisps, so I'm gonna pull them out, and what's fun to do while they're still warm is they're still malleable, so if you wanna twirl them around, kind of shape them in whatever form you want to make the plate a little more voluminous, this is the time to do it, and they'll dry out in the shape that you make. All right, our panna cotta is set, our crisps are done, so I'm just gonna use a little bit of hot water to make sure these come out nice and smooth and shiny from the silicone mold. You can dress it up in a million different ways. Panna cotta to me is a very simple dessert, so I chose to keep it really simple. We're just gonna put a couple of the sweet potato strands on here. So there you have it. That's how you make a sweet potato panna cotta with Pastry Star ingredients. I'm Chef Pedro. I want to wish you all a happy Thanksgiving. If you have any questions about the recipes or products, please feel free to visit us at pastrystar.com for more information. And remember, with Pastry Star, it's a piece of cake.